Our guest today is Fred Luskin, director of the Stanford Forgiveness Project and author of 3 books, Forgive for Good, a simple, straightforward method by which forgiveness can lead to kindness, and kindness can ultimately lead to happiness.
When I was getting my PhD at Stanford, I had to come up with a dissertation topic. And for many years, my interest had been that relationship between spiritual practice and health. And I was very intrigued by the question, and it was a question 15 years ago, more than an answer, of do the virtues as the religious spiritual traditions define them, do they make you healthier and happier? I had a full-time job in different positions at Stanford's medical school from 1995 till about 2006 as a researcher in preventive cardiology focusing on stress. Stress was the domain that I was working in. One of the things that I understood was that unforgiveness is self-induced stress. And that was the central way that I figured out how to teach it and how I was able to take these research ideas and spread them all over the place. Because instead of making forgiveness a spiritual or an ethical question, I made it a stress question.
Great. So it appeals to more people.
And everybody gets that. There is no shortcut in an honest life to completely eliminate suffering. And there's a lot of challenge to be able to hold one's pain appropriately. So if you lose an important relationship or you lose trust in an important person, there's suffering. And probably a good part of this process is to be okay with that suffering. Not to linger in it when it's unnecessary, but not to avoid it either. How much of the process of the suffering after the grief part is your own doing? Through the way you talk about it, through the way you think about it, through who you blame, and how much stress comes into your body. Make sure that that story you tell doesn't paint you as a victim. That you have control over the story, not the story having control over you.
It seems like the undercurrent of all this is taking unconditional responsibility for your life, no matter what the circumstances are.
After grieving the wound, people need time to get back to safety. And so part of that is holding the grief emotionally, but dealing with the cognitive confusion and changes that happen.
In response to that.
And then, only after the explosion has subsided can one become responsible. When anybody is thinking of somebody they hate, almost every bodily system is in distress. So their heart rate is pounding and the blood is surging through the vessels and the immune system is struggling and the nervous system's all jangled and the muscles are all tense. But you don't have to hate them. You can hold your pain, maybe with some compassion for your own suffering. And all of a sudden you notice all the body things calming down and all of the things that look like an injured organ or system releasing. I decided to see if I could really reorient these general methods towards couples. And that was the genesis for Forgive for Love. As a way to look forgivingly at your relationship from the beginning. We have almost a 50% divorce rate in this country.
Correct.
40% first marriages, 60% second marriages, 70% third marriages.
It gets worse.
It gets worse. And so clearly people are not learning how to forgive. One of the things that makes forgiveness easier is if we can hold our own suffering with compassion, not resentment. One of the major ways that we stop ourselves from forgiving is by thinking we're special in our suffering, that somehow a unique thing has happened to us. Nothing unique ever happens to people. So a compassion that broadens our sphere from an over-examination of our pain and just looks around and seeing how much pain human beings have, we have a piece of it. Those two are some of the most important directions that I push people during my forgiveness work. to have compassion for one's own piece of the pie, and from realizing that suffering is everywhere, and don't exaggerate your own. There are all sorts of brain systems and neurological systems that can subtly shift through the practice of quiet meditation, focusing, and unaroused consciousness.
I see.
That the way the neurons fire, the way the blood flow it goes, and the way the neurotransmitters will subtly shift over time. One of the things that the yogis discovered 3,000 years ago or so was that the rate and depth of our breathing was the link between the parts of the nervous system that get you agitated and the parts of the nervous system that calm you down. Gratitude and positive emotion immediately reduce stress in the body because they reduce threat. What good do you do in the world? Focus on it. And another one is, we always teach people how to say no, because some of the great stress in our culture now is overwhelm. You still sometimes have to operate in the world. So we may have jobs that are demanding. And the job may in and of itself cause some stress, but as long as we have too much adrenaline in our body, we're not going to be able to think clearly about how to handle the outside problem. So while stress management may work on the body and the mind, its goal is often to calm you down enough so you can think clearly about how to deal successfully with what you have to deal with.